Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 24, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text number 58. Yan Maya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Yan Maya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Sthiti Utpatti Apyayaya Hi Sthityutpatyapyayaya Hi Anugraha Tan Nivritter Nivritter Anugrahastan Nivritter Atma Labhaya Cheshyate Atma Labhaya Cheshyate Yanmaya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Sthityutpatyapyayaya Hi Anugrahastan Nivritter Atmalabhaya Cheshyate. Yanmaya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Tityutpatyapyayaya Hi Anugrahastan Nivritter Atmalabhaya Cheshyate. Yanmaya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Tityutpatyapyayaya Hi Anugrahastan Nivritter Atmalabhaya Cheshyate. Yanmaya Cheshtitam Pumsaha Sthityutpatyapyayaya Hi Anugrahastan Nivritter Atmalabhaya Cheshyate. Yet whatever Maya Cheshtitam, the laws of material nature enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pumsaha, of the living entities, Sthiti, duration of life, Utpatti, birth, apyayaya, annihilation. He indeed, anugraha, compassion, tat nivritte, the creation and manifestation of cosmic energy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Atmalabhaya, thus going back home, back to Godhead. I'm sorry, I didn't read properly. Thus going home, back to Godhead. Cha, indeed, ishyate, for this purpose, the creation is there. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead acts through His material energy in the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, just to deliver the living entity by His compassion and stop the living entity's birth, death, and duration of materialistic life. Thus, He enables the living being to return home, back to Godhead. Please repeat this translation after me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead acts through His material energy in the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, just to deliver the living entity by His compassion and stop the living entity's birth, death, and duration of materialistic life. Thus, He enables the living being to return home, back to Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Materialistic men sometimes ask why God has created the material world for the suffering of the living entities. The material creation is certainly meant for the suffering of the conditioned souls who are part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamaivamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha manashashtanindriyani prakritisthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. All the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are as good as the Lord qualitatively, but quantitatively there is a great difference between them. For the Lord is unlimited, whereas the living entities are limited. Thus, the Lord possesses unlimited potency for pleasure, and the living entities have a limited pleasure potency. Anandamayo Abhyasat, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. Both the Lord and the living entity, being qualitatively spirit soul, have the tendency for peaceful enjoyment. But when the part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead unfortunately wants to enjoy independently without Krishna, he is put into the material world where he begins his life as Brahma and is gradually degraded to the status of an ant or a worm in stool. This is called Manashashtani Indriyani Prakritisthani Karshati. There is a great struggle for existence because the living entity conditioned by material nature is under nature's full control. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Because of his limited knowledge, however, the living entity thinks he is enjoying in this material world. Manashyashtani indriyani prakritisthani karishyati. He is actually under the full control of material nature. But still he thinks himself independent. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Even when he is elevated by speculative knowledge and tries to merge into the existence of Brahman, the same disease continues. Aruhya krichrena param padam tataha patanti adhaha. Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 32nd verse. Even having attained that param padam, having merged into the impersonal Brahman, he falls again to the material world. In this way, the conditioned soul undergoes a great struggle for existence in this material world, and therefore the Lord, out of compassion for him, appears in this world and instructs him. Thus the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4.7, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. The real dharma is to surrender unto Krishna, but the rebellious living entity, instead of surrendering to Krishna, engages in adharma, in a struggle for existence to become like Krishna. Therefore, out of compassion, Krishna creates this material world to give the living entity a chance to understand his real position. Bhagavad Gita and similar Vedic literatures are presented so that Bhagavad Gita and similar Vedic literature are presented so that the living entity, living being may understand his relationship with Krishna. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyaha. Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 15th verse. All these Vedic literatures are meant to enable the human being to understand what he is, what his actual position is, and what his relationship is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Brahma Jignasa. Every conditioned soul is struggling, but human life provides the best chance for him to understand his position. Therefore, this verse says, Anugrahastan nivritte, indicating that the false life of repeated birth and death must be stopped, and the conditioned soul should be educated. This is the purpose of the creation. The creation does not arise whimsically as atheistic men think. Asatyam apratishtamte jagadahur anishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kama haitukam. They say that this world is unreal, that there is no foundation, and that there is no God in control. It is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. Bhagavad Gita 16.8. Atheistic rascals think that there is no God and that the creation has taken place by chance, just as a man and woman meet by chance and the woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a child. Actually, however, this is not the fact. The fact is that there is a purpose for this creation, to give the conditioned soul a chance to return to his original consciousness, Krishna consciousness, and then return home back to Godhead and be completely happy in the spiritual world. In the material world, the conditioned soul is given a chance to satisfy his senses. But at the same time, he is informed by Vedic knowledge that this material world is not his actual place for happiness. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosha anudarshanam. Bhagavad Gita 13.9. One must stop the repetition of birth and death. Every human being, therefore, should take advantage of this creation by understanding Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, and in this way return home back to Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. A very important verse for which Prabhupada has written a very elaborate purport. This is important verse because in this verse, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining what is the need for this material creation at all. So this is a very important question because Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, and all the scriptures declare that this material world is a place of suffering for the living entities who are by nature full of bliss, ananda. We are Satchidananda. We are eternal. We are full of knowledge and we are full of bliss. But our experience in the material world is just the opposite. We have got a body which is subject to all kinds of suffering ending with death. And under the influence of illusion, we think I am this body. Everyone, from Brahma up to the most insignificant creature, all created beings think I am the body. So the experience with this material body is that it is simply meant for suffering. So is it the intention of the Lord that He wants us to suffer, because of which He has created this world and placed us in this material world? The answer is no. He doesn't want us to suffer. He doesn't want to place us here, because as his part and parcel, we belong to him. We are very intimately connected, related with him, and we are meant to live with him in his personal abode in full bliss, eternal life, full of knowledge. So that information is given in the Vedic literature, in all the Vedic literature, especially in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. This specific knowledge is given, and this is the most confidential knowledge. This is transcendental knowledge. So, in this verse, Shukadev Goswami is explaining that the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts through his material energy. He has got two kinds of energies, or three kinds of energies, of which we are one kind of energy, living being, Jiva Bhuta, or living entity. And then there is the spiritual energy in the spiritual world, and material energy in the material world. So the spiritual energy is described as the energy which is Krishna's personal energy, his own energy, simply meant for Krishna's pleasure and the pleasure of Krishna's devotees, meant for spiritual enjoyment. Anandamayo Bhyasa. The material energy is meant for a particular purpose. It's a very particular purpose for which the material energy exists. What is that particular purpose? That it is meant for rectifying our wrong thinking. Our wrong thinking means the wrong thinking of the living beings in this material world. What is the wrong thinking? First of all, we think we are independent. The fact is, we are not independent, because we are very, 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 very tiny part of the Supreme Lord. Even though in quality we are spiritual beings, like the Lord is completely a spiritual personality. But the Lord is unlimited and we are limited. So quality is same, quantity is completely different. And what is the kind of difference? We can't imagine, we can't conceive. What is this difference? The difference is inconceivable. He is infinite, unlimited, and we are very, 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 very tiny, limited, very tiny. There is no comparison, no possibility of any comparison. Anu Vibhu, Anu Atma, Vibhu Atma. Jivatma, Paramatma. So the difference exists eternally. And because we are very tiny, we are subject to bewilderment when we try to become independent, when we become rebellious, when we become envious, when we try to enjoy independently, when we try to lord over others or material nature, whose position is it to be the Lord and actually control? It is Krishna's position. He is the controller. He is the master. He is the Lord. He is independent. So, this eternal fact has to be realized, has to be understood, has to be realized. So, for this purpose, the Supreme Lord has created this material world to make us understand, to make us realize, to make us wise. So, what he does, the Supreme Lord, he creates, maintains, and destroys this material world. And what is the purpose of this creation, maintenance, and destruction through the material energy? Just to deliver the living entity. Deliver means to get us out of this place. And what is our nature, our tendency in this material world? We want to stay here permanently. We want to make a permanent settlement. We want to make a permanent settlement in a place which is a temporary place. Somebody may say, oh, why should he make it temporary? Let him make it permanent. Then we can live here very nicely. But then, you see, the difficulty in our plan to live here permanently is that this entire material creation made out of the material energy, matter, is not suitable for our nature. We are spiritual by nature, and we cannot properly fit into this material nature. It is just the opposite. You study the characteristics of matter or material nature and understand what is spiritual nature. You'll see both are completely opposite. Completely opposite. Material nature is temporary. Spiritual nature is permanent, eternal. And because we are spirit, our nature is to be permanent, to be eternal. Therefore, when we desire material enjoyment, then the Lord has to create a material world and give us a material body. Only then material enjoyment is possible. But we are not meant to enjoy materially because we are spiritual by nature. Therefore, even if we somehow try to enjoy materially, which the Lord facilitates through the illusory energy, through this material energy, which is illusory energy. Because we are very, very stubborn, adamant. Even if we are told you're not meant to enjoy materially, still we say, no, no, no. Somehow I want to enjoy. Even if it's temporary, I want to enjoy. Even if it is illusory, I want to enjoy. Then the Lord facilitates. He facilitates this enjoyment through this whole mechanism of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Creation, maintenance, and destruction. Creation obviously is necessary because we are very stubborn. Somehow I want to enjoy. Okay, He creates. And then this enjoyment will not last because that's the nature of this material energy. It is not meant to last because what is permanent is the spiritual world. And our nature is eternal. So we are not meant to live here or enjoy here or make adjustment here or do anything here. We belong to a different place. So temporarily he may create. And then if we don't realize or understand that I don't belong here, after we try to enjoy one way, we didn't get the enjoyment we desired. There was some so-called happiness, but that didn't last, or that was not exactly what I wanted. Then we concoct different types of enjoyment. For accommodating this concoction of different types of enjoyment, the Lord has to make elaborate arrangements called maintenance of this material world. Because we want to continue. So what is this business of continuing material existence? Maintenance. How long will you go on? He'll maintain. He can maintain forever. But he also wants us to come out of this illusion. Not somehow make some adjustment, even if there is suffering. Under illusion, I'll think there is no suffering. Or under illusion, I'll make some foolish, temporary patchwork solution. It's just like this body is subject to disease. So when the body becomes diseased, because we want to continue material enjoyment, even though it's illusory, we'll want to somehow get rid of the disease. So the Lord has to make arrangement for curing diseases by giving us Ayurveda. All Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord only. And Veda means all kinds of knowledge. So the portion of the Vedas which gives us all kinds of material knowledge is meant for the maintenance. So we want to remain in this body, even though it's not the best body or the suitable body, or not our original body. Original body is spiritual. Our original form, original body is spiritual. And that's always there with us. That body is not acquired. That body is not created. That body is not fabricated. That is what we are. Spirit soul means spiritual body, spiritual senses, spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding, spiritual intelligence, spiritual pleasure. That's the meaning of spirit soul. That's the meaning of I am spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi. But anyway, we want to enjoy materially. Materially means what? We want a different kind of enjoyment than the natural spiritual pleasure which is there in relationship with Krishna. So Krishna has to make us forget him. Because in our relationship with him, we are connected with him, that he is the Lord and we are subordinate. He is the master, we are the servant. He is the enjoyer, we are the enjoyed. He is the provider, we are dependent on his making providing everything that we require. But if we somehow don't agree for this, I want to be the Lord, I want to be independent, I want to be like Krishna. Why should Krishna be the Lord? I want to be the Lord. Then the Lord has to make this material world, create this material world, where will be the illusory lords. Because that's not our position. Neither we have the capacity. It's just like different positions in this material world, different degrees of illusory lording facility is given. It's like even the most insignificant poor man, if he has a family, then he'll consider, I am the head of the family, I am the controller of the family members, I am the master of my family, I provide for my wife, my children. Isn't it? But then there are other positions which are greater control, bigger control. So then, not just I am the head of the family, I am the head of a community. Then expand it more. Oh, I am the head of the state. I am the head of a country. Or I am the head of an entire planet. Predominating deity of the planet is the head of the planet, controller of the planet. And then controller of a whole set of planets. Then ultimately the controller of the entire universe. Brahma's position, topmost position on this material world, material creation. But in any position, because we are constitutionally servant, our business will be simply serving. We cannot actually be the master. We cannot be the Lord. So we have to make a show. I am the Lord. I am the controller. Because we are not factually the controllers, unless the Lord arranges for some living entities to be under our control, we cannot factually control. So, he arranges through the laws of material nature different living beings in the position of controlled and controllers. So everybody is either a controller or a controlled. If a person has nobody to control under him or her, under illusion, the person may think, I am the controller of my body. Deha apatya kalatradishu atma sainyeshu asatswapi. The first illusion of material existence is, I am this body, and when one becomes a little mature, or little acquires little knowledge, then I am the controller of this body. But the fact is, this body is not me, because I am spirit soul. And the body is not controlled by me, because this body is matter. And matter is controlled by Durga Devi. Actually, matter is controlled by Krishna through Durga Devi, through his agent. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Out of ahankara, false ego, false identity, I am the controller, I am the master. We think that all activities which are actually carried out by material nature under the direction of Krishna as Paramatma, Super Soul, I think I am the doer, I am the master, I am the controller. So, all this is possible only under illusion. Only under illusion it's possible. Therefore, the illusory energy is necessary to create this illusion. To create this illusion, this illusory energy is necessary. And this illusory energy acts through the three gunas Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So this material energy is acting through the three gunas, but it is so subtle, nobody is conscious or aware how we are completely controlled from Brahma up to the most insignificant creature. Every created being is completely controlled by these three gunas. Why? Because this body itself is made up of those three gunas. Of course, the body is made up of Panchabhuta, but that Panchabhuta is the material elements, which is the part of the material energy. See how this material energy is constituted in this material world. The same energy differentiates into 24 different parts. Some portion of the material energy, first of all, is differentiated into earth, water, fire, air, and sky. 5 elements, Panchamahabhuta. Then there are the 10 senses. This senses for seeing, smelling, touching, for acquiring knowledge. Jnanendriya. Then there is Karmendriya, senses of action, the hands, the legs, the voice, etc. Then there is the inner sense, the mind. Now all these, as far as the material body and the material mind is concerned, all these are material. What we have as the material body, the material senses, these eyes, this ear, these hands, all these are material creations. What is this essentially? It is matter. It is material energy. That's all. But we make a distinction. This is hand. This is eye. This is ear. We make the distinction. Now this distinction is actually made possible by the Supreme Lord being present in our heart as Super Soul, Paramatma. As Paramatma, He is playing a very, 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 very important role in our life. He is facilitating everything that is happening through this body. Just like we are able to see. Actually, you cannot see just because you got this eye. Simple example. If there is no light, can you see? You cannot see. And even if there is light, the light has to fall on the object that you want to see, or that you're seeing, and that reflection of the image of that object has to fall properly on the eye. Just like sometimes you're seeing, if there's a glare, the image is not properly falling on your eye, you cannot see. There's a glare, you cannot see. So properly the image has to be formed and fall on the eye. And after that, some processing has to happen. That image, the signal of that image has to be transmitted to the brain. Now all this is whose arrangement? It is all the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, as a super soul. He has made all this arrangement in the body. And then after that, there has to be some knowledge about what this image is. Just like first time you see something, you don't know what it is. But then you learn what you're seeing, this object. Oh, what is this? This kartal. Okay, kartal. That knowledge that this is kartal is stored somewhere in the brain. And then that stored knowledge has to be recalled. Second time I see this kartal, what is this? Say, oh, it's kartal. I know it's kartal. So I know means what? Paramatma is giving the knowledge which is stored up in the brain. So there's a whole mechanism for retrieving this knowledge from the brain. When you see this, your seeing means there is light, and the light is reflected, image is formed, the signal is transmitted of the image to the brain, and in the brain there is a function of recalling. I have seen this object earlier, so I know what it is. And what is it? Karta. So karta, all that information is recollected, and then I say, oh, this is karta. I'm seeing a karta. All this is happening in a split second. Instantaneously it is happening. How is it happening instantaneously? Because Paramatma is active. He is the one who is making all this happen. And ahankara vimudatma, I am a foolish person, vimudatma, I am a donkey, foolish fellow. I think, oh, I am seeing, this is karta. I am able to see. I am the controller of my body. I think I am making all this happen. First of all, we don't know that all this mechanism is there. But these brainy scientists, they want to find out how this eye is working. So they figured out. There's a whole mechanism. They know. Those who have studied this very carefully, very analytically. Because some people, they have eye, but they are not able to see. So what is the cause for blindness in some people? So they figure out. Some cases, it is some defect, like a child is born. Sometimes children are born without the eyelid opening. That's a birth defect. So then, now they figured out some surgery can be done. Then the eyelid can be made to open. So they do the surgery, eyelid is opened. Oh, the child is able to see. Or some cases, the optic nerve, that connection, there is some problem. So even though the eyelid is opened, the eye is there, physical eye is there, but the optic nerve, there is some problem. So then they will try to repair that optic nerve problem. Brain surgery, they will do something, some brain surgery, neurosurgery. So like that. So all this mechanism actually exists. Now we know. Earlier you would have said, what mechanism? Nothing, no mechanism. But now we know there is a mechanism. Now, even if given that there is a mechanism, how does this mechanism actually work? So scientists say, automatic. Naturally it works. What is this naturally working? Nothing is automatic, nothing is natural. Because if I am having proper eyesight, I'm sitting and staring at something on the wall. I'm just staring at the wall. So even if so many things are happening in front of my eye, I don't take note of that at all. I don't see. Why? Because my attention is not on this, what is coming in front of my eye. My attention is on something else. So there is an involvement of consciousness also in the seeing. So seeing is possible only if there is a conscious observer. There is no meaning to seeing, in spite of all the arrangement. So Paramatma, Super Soul, he gives us the consciousness by which we can actually see. So the consciousness which is there in this body is different from my individual consciousness, which is my nature, which is my spiritual nature. So actually, the seer is originally the Paramatma, because it is that seeing happening through the whole mechanism, the arrangement, which is actually operated by Paramatma. And for this to operate, what is there in the body is called prana, pranavayu. So there is a circulation of this pranavayu. Like an electric motor, even if all the parts are perfectly there, properly placed, connected, but unless there is electric current, it will not work. So that electric current has to flow. There has to be a flow of electricity. Then the pump will nicely work. Similarly, this whole seeing mechanism, hearing mechanism, digesting mechanism, thinking mechanism, all this is powered by pranavayu. 10 kinds of pranavayu circulating in the body. That is not understood by the scientists. They don't know that yet. Someday they will discover that. It is there in the explained in the scriptures. 10 kinds of pranavayu. So this pranavayu circulation is the current that is flowing within this body to make all this dead matter work so wonderfully. After all, what is this physical eye made of? Panchabhuta. Panchabhuta is dead matter. Earth, water, fire, air, sky. Dead matter. But how does it work? How does it function? This eye. So many things are happening. When we see, they say there are some particles which get excited when the photon, that light particle, penetrates the eye and falls on the retina. Something is activated. Some cells are activated. Nerve cells are activated. Optic nerve cells are activated. And then the signal flows to the brain. So for all this to happen, some energy is required. No. Some power is required. No. That power is prana. And that prana is whose power? Paramatma. Super soul's power. So we are not seeing by our power of seeing. The power of seeing is Paramatma's. And then what happens after this whole mechanism works and then the seeing actually happens? Who is seeing first? Paramatma. Then Paramatma is giving you the knowledge that you are seeing, what you are seeing. So therefore, in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, there is Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. Kshetra is this body and Kshetrajna is the knower of the body. So I have this body, but I am not this body. So I am the knower of the body. And knower of the body means not just this body alone, but the entire bodies of others, my body, bodies of others, and body of the entire universe, which is the form of the Supreme Lord, the Universal Lord, the Virat Purusha, the Universal Lord, Vishwatma. So his body, the entire universe itself. So I am just aware, I am conscious, I am in knowledge of that. And that knowledge also is given by Krishna as Paramatma. Therefore, when I see, I think I am seeing, actually I am not seeing. Paramatma is seeing. And if I have a desire to know what I am seeing or where my eyes are going, then Paramatma satisfies that desire by the whole mechanism and giving me the knowledge what you're seeing is Karta. So constantly, Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita, what is that? Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, I am seated in your heart as Paramatma. From me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So that knowledge Krishna is giving continuously is giving knowledge. Anything that we know, anything that we remember, anything that we are conscious of, everything is due to Paramatma. Every moment he is doing this. So my point is, Krishna has created this world for the sake of satisfying our desire to enjoy independently, for us to try to lord over material nature, lord over others. Who is the Lord of everybody? Krishna. But I want to be the Lord. Why Krishna should be the Lord? Okay, you be the Lord. This material world is created. And Krishna is in the background. He is the one who is making everything happen. But he never asserts himself in this material world. I am the one who is actually facilitating for you to see. No, he doesn't assert like that. We can falsely think. As long as nobody is claiming, some property is lying somewhere. Nobody is claiming, oh, nobody is there. Let me take charge of that. Let me become the Lord of that. Let me possess that. That's exactly what we are doing. As long as nobody else claims, whatever is there is mine. Or as long as I can subdue others who may also claim, I am the Lord. You are not the Lord. I am more powerful than you. So like this, Paramatma is actually facilitating. Krishna as Paramatma is facilitating everything. But the reality is, because ultimately, how much ever we strive, unless Paramatma facilitates, will not be successful. So even if Paramatma facilitates and we are so-called successful in our endeavor for enjoyment, and endeavor for possessing, endeavor for becoming the Lord, endeavoring for control, still our inner satisfaction is never to be attained by any of these methods. That real satisfaction is not there. So one pursuit, after that, if it is unsuccessful, somehow I'll try different ways to become successful. If I'm successful, then people think, oh, I have to now aim for higher things, bigger things. So I may have a desire to start a small factory, set up a small factory and run very nicely. So if I'm successful doing that, oh, you have to expand. Means basically, I'm such a rascal that I'm not really satisfied with a small factory, small control, small amount of profit. I want bigger profit, bigger control, bigger enjoyment. So this is the disease of the living entity. This is called Bhavaroga, disease of this materialism. So this disease, for curing this disease, the Lord has made this material world to rescue us from this trap of Maya, trap of the illusory energy. We have ourselves put ourselves in this trap. Foolishly, thinking I am independent, thinking I am the Lord, thinking I can do everything by myself. I can enjoy independently. I put myself in this trap. And then, after that, I don't know how to get out. Supposing somebody comes to the realization this material existence is, essence is suffering, somehow they come to know after repeatedly suffering, or getting some enlightenment. Okay, either way. Then they want to get out of this trap. It is so very difficult because it's a very complicated arrangement. It's not so simple. Only Paramatma is supremely intelligent, supremely powerful. Only He can make this, He can create, He can make this work. However complicated, for Paramatma nothing is complicated. He is unlimitedly intelligent, unlimitedly powerful, unlimitedly capable. So He makes this whole contraption called material existence, He makes it work. It's so complicated. The scientists and technologists are realizing The more they create newer machines, newer gadgets, the more complex it becomes. So complicated. And then for complicated arrangements, they have complex systems. Just like mobile phone we are all using very easily. Very convenient to use. Very useful for us. Okay, for communication. Very nice facility. But how complex is the stuff inside? After all, the person who has created it, he should be able to repair it, no? Because he knows exactly what is happening. But it has become so complicated, they'll say, just throw that and take a new one. I cannot repair. Can any technologist repair? Some small thing has gone, something wrong in that whole complicated arrangement called mobile phone. Display is not coming. They want to repair that. Earlier they used to say we would change a whole motherboard. The entire mechanism which makes display work, this work, that work, everything work, it's so small and tiny. Somehow they made it. But repairing, not possible. Throw it and take a new one. So this material world is very, very, very complex. If an insignificant thing like a mobile phone is so complicated, can imagine how much more billions and trillions of times more complicated the arrangement of the working of the entire universe. So many millions of planets. They're all rotating in their orbit. Never there is a collision between two planets. They're perfectly in their orbit, they're rotating. One of our devotees, Prabhupada's disciples, a scientist, so he's written one book, The Scientific Basis of Krishna Consciousness. So in that small booklet, he's just giving few examples of how complex this material nature is, that we take it for granted. How do we smell? He gives an example. How do we smell? Different kinds of fragrances or different kinds of smell. Bad odors and good odors. Good odors, different kinds of varieties, different kinds of fragrances. How do we smell? So he's analyzed that chemically and biochemicals and the mechanism of smelling. So complex it is, so complex. So he's pointing out the complicated arrangement in this material nature which nobody can duplicate. Nobody can, most brilliant scientists cannot. Because they can't figure out even what is actually happening at that nano level, what is happening, they can't figure out. So like this complicated thing is made possible by Krishna, but his purpose is not to make us suffer. That suffering is our own foolishness. But his purpose is to enlighten us and to get us out. And that only he can do. We cannot do it independently. Either individually we strive or collectively we strive, we cannot. It is just like Krishna is supremely intelligent. We all have got little intelligence, tiny portion of that. So sometimes people think collectively if we put together all our intelligence, that will become either equal or even greater than Krishna's intelligence. No. Krishna's intelligence is not equal to the sum total of all our intelligence. No. Krishna's intelligence is infinite. All our intelligence, it is first of all very, very little. Even if you put together the total intelligence of all the living beings, still it will be only finite. It will never be infinite. So our intelligence collectively also can never equal Krishna's intelligence. Our strength collectively also cannot equal Krishna's strength. So this realization we should have. Krishna is unlimited, we are limited. Unlimited is always unlimited, eternally, and will eternally be limited. How much ever we develop our intelligence, we cannot become unlimited. We can never become God. We can never become Krishna. So therefore, the only course for us is to surrender to Krishna. Because only when we surrender, then Krishna can direct us perfectly, give us proper directions. We have to work only by Krishna's directions. Even if I think I'm independent, I'm working by Krishna's direction as Paramatma. Foolishly, illusorily, I'm thinking, oh, it is my intelligence, my idea, my memory power, my ability, my skill. In just one verse, one portion of a verse, Shabdakhe Paurusham Rishu. Krishna says in the 7th chapter of Bhagavatam, I am the ability in man. Man means in every human being. So, Krishna is the one who is actually giving us the skill. The skill is his, not ours. But foolishly, I think it is my skill. Knowledge is his. He gives the knowledge, but I think it's my knowledge. Or I have acquired the knowledge. No, it is actually Krishna's. Krishna gives the knowledge. So, when we surrender, immediately we will give up our own independent ideas, independent thinking, independent plans, and simply listen to Krishna, follow Krishna. And he'll say, oh, you want to end this suffering? I'll tell you how to end this suffering. You want to get out of this miserable material existence? I will get you out. So that intelligence to surrender, intelligence to follow Krishna comes from surrender to Krishna. And when we surrender to Krishna, immediately our material existence is finished. You don't have to wait after surrendering. How long will it take to get out? How long will it take to do something, follow something? No. Immediately, instantaneously, you are out of material existence. How does it work? It actually is, we come out of the influence of these three gunas. We come out of material influence. Surrender means what? Immediately you are lifted above, just like somebody is drowning in the ocean, struggling to breathe by somehow keeping himself afloat. And then as soon as someone comes from outside and lifts the person even 1 millimeter above the level of water, immediately free breathing. Outside the water, whether you are 10 feet above the water or 1 millimeter above the water, you can freely breathe. You're out of water, that's all. Similarly, when you're out of this material influence, that happens when you become Krishna conscious, fully Krishna conscious. Immediately you are out of material existence, you are in your spiritual original position. You are eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. You know who is Krishna. You are situated in your relationship with Krishna. Everything is perfect. Everything is over, finished, over. Jivan mukta sauchate. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasagira nikhilaswapi avasthasu jivan mukta sauchate. One who is fully surrendered to Krishna and is exactly acting, thinking, feeling, willing, everything exactly according to Krishna's instructions, Krishna's directions, is actually a liberated soul even when within this body. Just like when Krishna in this world, he comes to this world or he is situated in this material world, he is not affected or touched by anything material. Same way, a devotee who's a pure devotee, is completely surrendered to Krishna, acting exactly according to Krishna's directions, is also completely liberated. So that Krishna consciousness is so easily possible if you simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Simply do that nicely and you'll become perfect. So I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Some announcements. Nagar Sankirtan, we'll be having Nagar Sankirtan on 19th August, the coming Saturday. Nagar Sankirtan will begin from Palace Anjaneya Temple and will pass through Ashoka Road, Suji Street, KT Street, KR Hospital Road, and end at Kanyaka Parmeshwari Temple on Ashoka Road. So all of you are invited to participate in this Nagar Kirtan. It will be from, time is not mentioned. What's the time? 6 p.m.